Why were you ashamed of yourself like never before? When I was 18, I started stealing money out of the register at the mom and pop store where I worked. I can't even tell you why I did it. I hadn't ever stolen even a candy bar before, but I started stealing large amounts of cash by falsifying refunds on the register. It went on for about a year, and then one day I was called into the office where two detectives were waiting. I had stolen over $17,000 in a year. That wasn't the shameful part. The shameful part was telling my dad that I was being charged with 7 felonies, but that if he paid the grocery store back they would drop all charges. I don't know how he ever forgave me for this. He is the most honorable person I know, and the look of disgust on his face when I told him has stuck with me forever, and of course he paid them back for me. I'm 31 now and have mostly paid him back, but it is still something that makes me really upset. I don't think I've ever forgiven myself for being so stupid. It's funny how something like that just happens. You do it once and it just snowballs. I was at a hotel covering the bistro and they tried to do $30 a plate buffet for a while. If they paid cash, I'd hand them a plate and not ring it in. It's not like I needed the money so bad, it just kept going. A month passed and they announced that the buffet wasn't sustainable enough to go on. Never got caught, but I feel terrible for it. I don't know, $30 a plate, I think they were the ones stealing. All depends on the quality of the food. I mean, nobody wants to admit they ate 9 cans of ravioli, but I did. I'm ashamed of myself. The first can doesn't count, then you get to the second and third. Fourth and fifth I think I burnt with the blowtorch, and then I just kept eating. Shitstorms a coming. Incoming. Or outgoing. Once I was visiting my friend. I was only 11 years old. We were sitting on an expensive white fabric sofa and watching TV. At one point, I began to feel very bad. I got up and ran to the toilet. I began to feel very sick and I was tormented by a terrible pain in my stomach. As I thought, my friend immediately ran after me to help me. When I felt better, we went back to the sofa and the place where I was sitting was covered in blood. It was a very expensive white sofa. Later, I noticed that all my pants were also covered in blood. We were very scared and called an ambulance. I thought that I would die now because blood was pouring out of me. My friend started crying and screaming and I repeated after him. Later, an ambulance came to us. We showed them that blood was coming from me. You should have seen their faces. I remembered them for the rest of my life. They told me it was my period. Explained what it was. My parents are very Christian and didn't tell me about it. Therefore, the ambulance just left and we all calmed down. But my parents had to pay for cleaning the sofa and we still communicate with a friend. This is both a shameful and funny story. They told me it was my period, explained what it was. My parents are very Christian and didn't tell me about it. Do Christians consider it inappropriate to talk about it? In my family, this topic was closed. We never talked about sex education and sex. How terrible. Asterisk 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 edit. Asterisk 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 see ops profile. I only look because I had a feeling. I did a bunch of drugs and drank a lot when I was younger. I ended up in the hospital as a result. I remember having to explain to the doctor all the drugs I took, how often, how much I drank. I knew he'd probably heard it all before and was just trying to understand my condition. I sincerely doubt he was judging me too harshly, or maybe he was, who knows. Regardless, I just remember feeling immense shame when I was explaining that I basically hadn't given a fuck about myself for the last 13-ish years. That was a lonely place. How are you doing now? Strikes and gutter balls, ups and downs. Not on drugs anymore though, so definitely better. A lot of ins and outs, a lot of what have yous. When I was growing up, I lived in a hoarder house, the yucky animal poop kind. I was a kid. I had no control over my environment, so I just had to keep a low profile to not draw attention of CPS. We were on government assistance and all that. A few instances come to mind. In high school, I was a lunch ticket kid, meaning I was on a program where I got free school lunches on Mondays before first period. I'd go to the cafeteria to collect my week's worth of lunch tickets. It was always the same lunch lady who passed them out. One day, totally randomly, she passes me my tickets and says something to the effect that I was a leech and mooch on the system, griping how she works for her food and I should too. It was so weird and random, I just didn't think to fight her on it. She was a grown-up, so she must be right? Second thing also happened in high school. I got called to the guidance office, and my guidance counselor handed me smoking cessation brochures and said if I wanted help quitting smoking, she could help. Thing is, I didn't smoke at all. It actually grossed me out, and it still does too. This day, my mom smoked in the house, and I guess I stunk so bad of cigarettes that someone filed a complaint to the school about me. If it's any consolation, I'm now an honest middle-class taxpayer, please no hate. Fuck that lunch lady, shaming kids for their parents not being able to afford food, messed up. She was likely the product of her own unfortunate upbringing to have that kind of mentality. When I was 19, I fell for one of those fake check scams. My mom had to help me pay the bank $2,500. I've since paid her back, but I was so ashamed of myself. I had never broken down and sobbed so hard in front of someone. How does that work? The bank scammed you. As an example, say you're looking for a job, a scammer finds you first and hires you. They give you a check to cover the costs of materials, a new laptop, work boots, whatever sounds reasonable. The check they give you is too much, say $3,000 for what will end up being a $500 purchase. They ask you to pay them the remainder after you buy your materials. You oblige. A few days later, the original check bounces, but now you're down whatever you paid back the scammers. A family member of mine went through this last year. It's so messed up to pry on people just looking for a job. She ended up losing $2,500. Few years back, went to visit my sister. At the time I reached at her home, I had to pee really bad. I was so full I was walking funny. My sister, her husband, and his mother came to greet me at the door. I said I need to use the toilet immediately, and we all entered the house. Just then, my little niece rushed from inside and hugged me. Her head hit my lower abdomen really hard, and I peed right there. I did stop as quickly as possible, but I had a big wet patch on my pant. At least it was just on the one pant. Could you imagine if it was both pant? I had the flu with a crazy fever and went to Target to pick up cold medicine and Gatorade in. Discovered that I was talking to myself when the lady in line in front of me turned around and looked at me horrified. I have no idea what I said, but she grabbed her as yet unloaded cart and skedaddled off to another register. There was a guy behind me in line and refused to tell me what I must have said. Just laughed at me the whole time he was in line. That's a mystery that will nag at you forever. Bubble gets during a road trip, had to pull over and poop in the bushes. People were driving by and saw me. I will never recover from that embarrassment. Edit. Sounds like a lot of you share the same experience I did, smiley face. I feel like embarrassment and shame are vastly different. They are. Martha Nussbaum has written about it. Where did she write about it? Her work seems interesting. Went to the bank and the lady who was helping me told me about a savings account I could set up and the benefits of it. Didn't really care about it, but she seemed nice, so I thought, yeah, sure, why not? She wanted to show how easy it was to do, so she asked to use my phone and do it, and I said sure. I just held my phone flat on my palm facing towards her while she went on Safari, and then boom. Ebony wants it in all 3 holes with thumbnail big as fuck on the screen. Because I forgot to switch from private to normal, she created a new tab really fast and done what she intended to do, and we both acted like she didn't see what she saw. But I died inside and couldn't stop thinking about it for the following days. Oh god, that's horrifying. One time me and my boyfriend at the time worked at a grocery store and this old man came in once and walked up to my boyfriend and asked him to clear his porn history from his phone in case he died soon. He couldn't figure it out and didn't want anyone to find it. I wasn't standing there at the time, but he came to find me immediately to tell me about it. How embarrassing it must have been for him to ask a complete stranger just to spare his family. That or he just didn't give a f about anyone else or see a worker as a human who deserves respect. Either way, humans are so complex. While I was going to school, I worked as a home health aide. My client asked me to show him how to delete the porn from his browsing history because his wife would leave him if she found out. Meanwhile, their son would visit and tried to get me to do semi-nude photo shoots for him. He was married. He pissed me off one day, so I loudly told the wife what her boys were up to and walked out. They wouldn't give me time off for my wedding, so fuck them. This happened in like 2nd grade and it still haunts me lol. I can't remember the exact conversation, but I boastfully informed my friend that I had basically been at a concert because my mom was at one while pregnant with me. Later found out this isn't even true. It was actually while pregnant with my brother. Anyway, my friend was like, "Oh yeah, what concert?" I panicked because I had absolutely no idea and blurted out the first name that came to mind. James Bond. She gave me a weird look and changed the topic. I later found out who or what James Bond even is. I have no idea why I thought he was a musician and proceeded to wish my mother had never been pregnant with me at all. Has this friend completely forgotten about this exchange years ago? No doubt. Do I still occasionally think about it while lying awake at night? Yes. Asked my friends if Michael Jackson was on American Idol once and they never let it go. One time in middle school I asked my friends which one was the Cold War, World War II or Vietnam. Never lived it down. That is a totally reasonable question in my mind. The notion of a Cold War is kind of a bizarre concept, particularly for a middle school kid. You located it in the relevant time frame. You identified one of the hot proxy wars that characterized it. I'd say you were doing just fine. And shame on the people who made you feel ashamed. Oh, geez, about 40 years ago, in the week before heading off to another city to attend university after a gap year, I walked in on my good friend and his twin sister having sex in his room. They screamed, I ran, went home, and spent the rest of that day and most of the next wondering if I should avoid the two of them for the rest of the time I was there or avoid everybody for the next week and just hide in my house. That next evening, I got a call from my friend. His sister wanted to talk. I agreed to meet her at the 7-Eleven nearby, and we went for a walk. Long conversation short. She offered to sleep with me for the rest of the week if I kept quiet about the two of them. N. I took her up on it. I can't believe. Yeah, I did that, and it's stuck with me ever since. And NBSP. Edit. Formatting. That Game of Thrones level stuff. How hot was the sister? I had a crush on her for years. That was one of the reasons I said yes to her offer. Big Brain was all set to say no, but Little Brain jumped up, put a finger to my lips and told her yes. Why just 1 week? You could have tapped that for as long as you wanted to. My grandmother was my favorite person in the world since I was a baby. She sent one real pearl at Christmas when I was in my early 20s. She made them into a real pearl necklace. She passed away not too long after that. A few years later, I went to a school competition and lost that necklace. I still feel physically ill when I think about it. I can only imagine how much that hurts. I'm so sorry. Spend some time thinking about how she would react if you were able to tell her. Maybe walk through the conversation in your mind. I doubt she would be angry. She wouldn't love you any less. Your relationship wasn't about the pearls. Maybe you could start gifting yourself one pearl every year on her birthday and start a new necklace in her honor. What an incredibly kind and thoughtful comment. Why didn't I think of this? To brilliant ideas. You're absolutely right too. We had a super special relationship because of who we are, not because of anything material. Thank you. I'm a sentimental old lady, but This made my sting with tears. How lovely. Also, if you ever have a child, niece, grandchild, you could do the same thing. Gift them a pearl every year, then necklace, and make it a tradition. 22 years ago, a friend trusted me and told me she has epilepsy and the medication made her gain weight. I was only one outside family she shared within 8 years. And as a silly teenager, I disclosed her secret to my that time crush who made it public info. I felt so small and ashamed of myself. Still ashamed of myself, though she forgave me for it, which made the guilt worse.